So G4TV is shutting down just a year after it relaunched, which is absolutely crazy. And I don't normally talk about stuff that's this side of gaming. Usually we talk about gaming news, specifically to games, or obviously I play the games here on the channel as well, so like walkthroughs and let's plays and different things like that. Usually it's more actual game, or at least game company focused, like Sony, Microsoft, and then Nintendo. Actually, that goes on a different channel. You can find a link in the description below for that. But this feels more like it's kind of venturing a little bit more into like the drama gaming news style. And again, I don't normally do this, but G4TV was so, like, I guess monumental, for lack of a better word, back in the day, right? It was such or iconic. I guess iconic would be the right word. It was so iconic way back in the day. And so when it was relaunching, a lot of people were excited. And once it did relaunch, there was a series of different things that there was issues. There was issues with this new iteration of G4TV. And so I want to break down all of those different things here in this video. But I also want to talk about what exactly is going on, obviously, first and foremost, because the first thing that's first is the fact that Chairman and CEO of Comcast, Dave Scott, sent out a memo. And in this memo, he was basically saying that G4TV is done. It's over. It's done. That's it. And unfortunately, what's really interesting, not interesting, that's probably not a good word to use, but what's it's interesting in a negative sense, is that not all the employees had a heads up. Because Wario64 on Twitter tweeted this out, and then in response, Gerard, also known as the Completionist, he replied and he said, "Hey, this tweet is basically how he found out that he lost his job," which is pretty messed up if you think about it. The fact that like they didn't get any kind of heads up that they were going to be losing their job, the G4TV was going to be shutting down, and the first thing that they kind of had was this memo that I guess went out into the public at the same time as it went to the team, because this memo was addressed to the G4TV team. So anyways, I'm going to throw up the memo up on screen again. Keep in mind, we typically kind of cover gaming news more in the sense of directly towards games, but again, this is such a big topic, and like I said, G4TV was technically one of the first, I think them and like Electric Playground, if I remember right. I don't know if you guys remember Electric Playground. They're pretty old school as well. They might have been a little bit later, I can't remember, but they're pretty old, right? They're some of the oldest, kind of, I guess, gaming outlets, if you will. Now with YouTube, Twitch, a lot of people do this kind of thing, so it's nothing new. But anyways, I'll throw it on the screen. Let's take a look at it. So this is what the memo says. He says, as you know, G4 was introduced last year to tap into the popularity of gaming. We invested to create the new G4 as an online and TV destination for fans to be entertained, to be inspired, and connect with gaming content. Because of course, back in the day, it was pretty much just a TV show. But now with YouTube, Twitch, and all that, they had the online side of things as well. Basically saying that over the past several months, they worked hard to generate that interest in G4, but viewership is low and the network has not achieved sustainable financial results. This is certainly not what they hoped for, he says. And as a result, we have made the very difficult decision to discontinue G4's operations effective immediately. I know this is a disappointing news, he says. He says he is also disappointed, and he wants to thank everyone on the G4 team for their hard work and the commitment to the network. He also says that HR team is going to be reaching out to them to provide them with support, discuss other opportunities that may be available, and answer any questions that they may have. He says, thank you for all your hard work for G4. Sincerely, Dave Scott. Again, Chairman and CEO of Comcast, Spectator, however you pronounce that last word. So yeah, pretty messed up, and if they didn't get like a heads up beforehand. But I want to talk about what actually caused this, right? What created the very quick demise of G4. Now, there's a lot of things. The first thing that's probably going to come to people's minds, which I'll say for last, is that rant that we got kind of towards the beginning of the year. And I'm not gonna lie, back then when that first happened, I almost covered it here on the channel, but again, I was kind of like, again, it's venturing out into more drama territory, and I don't know. It seemed there's so much going on with that situation that I just decided not to touch it. But now with G4TV shutting down, that does play a factor into it. But one of the things that was interesting that the Washington Post noted, and I will say the Washington Post is not my favorite news outlet, for a number of different reasons. So, you know, I'd rather quote someone else. But they did say that interestingly enough, apparently, according to multiple G4 employees that were interviewed by the Post, that some high-profile creators demanded day rates of $25,000 to $30,000 when invited to appear as guests on G4. Now, I know people are gonna read this and instantly you're gonna think like, "Whoa, like that's a lot of money. Who on earth would ask for that kind of money?" There's a couple of variables I just want to quickly touch. I don't want to stay on this point too long. But the first is that number one, I don't know who these big creators are, right? It could be any of the biggest creators in gaming. I'm not going to name names just because we don't know exactly who it is, and I don't want to put a name to the story, and just kind of speculate. But you guys have an idea of who some of the biggest, content creators are. Now you gotta understand that with them, they carry a ton of influence, right? And for the most part, you hear about sponsored videos, things like that. And, companies are willing to pay a variety of different amounts of money, right? It depends on what kind of influence you have, what kind of reach you have, right? If there's always hundreds of thousands to even millions of people to watch, whatever you're doing, whether it's a live stream or, videos or whatever, like things like that, then you're gonna have so much influence that they're willing to pay a little bit more, right? So it wouldn't be, unheard of for a company to offer, 10, 15, 20 plus $1,000 to some of the biggest content creators for things like sponsored content, right? Well, we've all seen it, right? There's a video where it's like, okay, this video is sponsored by, such and such a company. They're the ones that are, paying me to make a video on this game or whatever else, right? Sponsored content, right? And that's normal because, again, they're paying for publicity, right? They're paying for, basically, it's an ad, right? Instead of paying that much money in advertising, which they still pay money in advertising, that's part of their advertising budget for a company, right? So it makes sense, right? They're going to pay a content creator that has a lot of influence, pretty hefty amount of money because, again, the value is there for the company. So again, it's not unheard of. So in that sense, you got to understand that. But for some of the bigger content creators to demand $25,000, $30,000 to become or to be invited to appear as guests on G4, I mean, that is getting on a little bit steep side, even for the bigger content creators. I think personally, like I said, it varies, in the industry, right? It's like any industry. But again, for G4 that had just relaunched too, like I said, we didn't even really make it, like we made it about a year in. And for they didn't know if it was going to be the same thing as it was back then, things like that. It's not like G4 was, super well known or, super well established. The new G4, I'm not, obviously it was really well known back in the day, but this is a new one. Anyways, all that to say, that apparently played a factor into it. Now, moving on from that though, a couple other things to take note is, number one, this is something I heard a lot of people complain of, is that they felt like some of the hosts, not all of them obviously, right? Like obviously you got like Gerard, the completionist we were talking about earlier. He's been in the industry for a long time. He really knows games, but some of the other hosts, some people feel like they just really didn't know what they were kind of talking about. They seemed out of touch, I guess. And I think that's part of what also turns some people off to this new iteration of G4TV. There's also the fact that, it could have been just the format, right? Maybe a lot of people just weren't feeling the format. It didn't capture that vibe it did back in the day for a lot of people, right? And some of that is the personalities, the kind of, people that you hire to work, for the company. And, that could be another huge thing about it, right? So you kind of take all these different things, all these different bits and pieces, and it just kind of compiles it into one giant reason of why it probably failed. But the final thing, and I think this is probably the biggest thing, is that rant. I think that was that nail in the coffin, is the rant that Frost kind of went on back at the beginning of the year. Now, there's a couple things to say about this. Again, could be its own topic in and of itself, but just to quickly touch on it. in one sense, it's like, okay, you get it. The whole idea was that, she was trying to go off of was the objectification of women, right, in general, but obviously specifically in gaming as well. And that's something that's like, okay, you can understand that side of things. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to see that, in media in general, women are obviously objectified and extremely sexualized, and again, that's a whole other topic. But it's also where that rant went into, and also the tone, right? How you present what you're saying, right? Because there's a couple different things that kind of factor into it. And I think that's what really kind of turned people off, is those two things, is the tone and where it went. Because where it went is Frost basically imposing this idea that anyone who was criticizing her and disliked her was automatically because of sexist reasons, because she didn't look like the past hosts and this and that or whatever. And that was just kind of like, it's kind of a blanket statement, kind of an assumption that turned a lot of people off, because they're like, dude, like, what? That's kind of, it was just kind of like put a bitter taste in people's mouths, right? And you gotta keep in mind, the thing is, were there some people criticizing her for that reason? Do those people exist? I'm sure they did, right? And like in anything, there's people that will criticize someone for all kinds of reasons, right? So I'm sure that there was a group of people that probably did, but does that mean you could say, like, the reason that people had a problem with her in G4 was automatically because of that? That's where the problem of the statement was, right? Is throwing this blanket over everybody, where there's people that maybe they just didn't like her personality. You know what I mean? That's fine. It's like same thing with me, right? I'm sure there's lots of people that don't like me, and that's completely fine. I get it. You're not gonna like every single person, and you're not gonna like everybody's personality, and that's just how life is, right? And people might criticize you just because they ain't feeling your personality. It's not vibing with them, if you will, right? And I'm sure like a large majority, it was probably just that. But again, it kind of, to accuse everybody, like your viewership like that, kind of threw people off. And then, like it was said, it was the tone too, right? It was very, I don't know if brash is the right word. I feel like that's probably the only word I can kind of come up with. It was very, again, like self-assertive in a rude, noisy, overbearing way. That's the definition of brash. So yeah, I mean, I guess you could say that, right? It was very, it was arrogant. It came off like in an arrogant way. It came off in a very kind of self-assertive, rude, kind of overbearing sort of way. Again, the tone was not right? Like I said, you could have been talking about the topic of the objectification of women in gaming, and done it a lot better than you did there, right? And I think, like I said, I think just that the way the rant panned out is what really put a nail in the coffin and turned a lot of viewers off. And a lot of viewers were like, dude, this is like, what is this? This is really, they just weren't feeling it. They're like, a lot of people thought it was cringy, very cringy how it kind of came off. Like I said, there's probably 1,000 other better ways that it could have been done if they really wanted to, go down that path, and talk about that topic. Like I said, there would have been many better ways to have done it, and that was not the right way. And I like I said, I really think that was a huge factor as well. So you combine all these different things, like I said, that the format, maybe some of the people, like I said, that they hired, that they just weren't the right fit. People weren't really feeling it. They kind of maybe seemed out of touch. Like I said, their format, all of it together, it's unfortunate, but it just kind of crumbled and it failed. So I don't know. Let me know though in the comments below. Why do you guys think it failed? Like I said, this is me just kind of throwing, a bunch of different elements that I think kind of factored in as a whole. And like I said, it's disappointing that, G4TV, which a lot of people, remembered back in the day, comes back. It just didn't come back right. And that, this is the end result, especially for everyone who lost their jobs and didn't even get notified in advance. Like, that's really messed up, that part. It's like, dude, if you're going to let people know that they're getting, laid off, let them know in advance, man. Give them some kind of warning, upfront warning. Like, even if it's like, hey, we're considering this, just want to let you know this is a very strong possibility. I don't know, man. Anyways, you feel for the people that lost their jobs just out of, suddenly on the flip of a dime. So, obviously you feel for that, but on the flip side, you know, it's not really surprising that it crashed and burned for a variety of different reasons. So let me know what you, again, let me know what you guys think caused the failure. Do you think it's a variety of things? Do you think I'm hitting it right on the nose? Do you think I'm off? I don't know. Let me know in the comments below. And like I said, for the most part, we usually just focus on strictly gaming style news, but sometimes we venture off a little bit into the outskirts, if you will, like a video like this. So we talk about the games, play the games on the channel. Stick around if you guys enjoy it. And I don't know, let me know all your thoughts in the comments below. Are you disappointed that G4TV has ended, or do you not really care? Like I said, let's further talk about it down below. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys soon. Another one. Stay safe, stay well, and until then, game on.